Starting in a child's pose. Maybe the knees are together, maybe they're wide. Either way, the feet come together. Whatever feels best for you. Give yourself a moment to settle in. You might already start to notice maybe some tightness in the hips or in your body, in your breath. Maybe your spine doesn't feel very long and you can, with every breath, find a little more kind of space through the spine. And allow yourself to really feel the gravity weighing you down to the floor. You can make small adjustments anytime you need to, and then eventually make your way back to the sensation of the pose. Every inhale creating some more space. Every exhale settling a little bit deeper into that space. And so because we started in a child's pose, a pretty deep hip opener, we're going to do some variations on child's pose now. You'll just first take a big stretch. So really reach all the way through the fingertips. See if you can find some more room in your spine. And then walk your fingertips over towards the right. Maybe it's just a little bit. Maybe you have more room to walk off of the mat. Maybe not. You might cross your left hand on top of the right for a little bit more room. And it's okay if your shoulder opens up a bit. On your exhales, you're just going to work to sink it down. You don't have to force your shoulders to be any way. Just allow them to heavy. Feel the length of your spine from your hips all the way to your fingertips. Opening up the left side rib cage, left side body. Breathe. Take one more deep breath. And then slowly make your way back to center. If you feel like you need to, you might come up a little bit to kind of release the compression in your hip. Otherwise, you can go right into the other side. Walk fingertips and hands over towards the left. You might cross the right hand on top of the left. Each side might be different, so it might not be what you did on the other side. Feel the length of the right side of your body, opening up right side rib cage. Imagine your breath traveling from tailbone all the way to the fingertips. Let your head fall wherever it naturally falls. Notice the breath start to naturally slow and deepen as you quiet the body. Release any tension in the body and heavy down to the floor. Take one more deep breath. And slowly make your way back to center. In the center, take a big full stretch, tailbone to fingertips, and maybe now you notice that you have a little more room, a little more length in your spine. And then we're gonna open the hips up, so stretch the hip flexors from that compression by first making your way up to a tabletop. And then from your tabletop, walk your hands all the way forward, puppy pose. So you're still lengthening in the spine, creating a little more space in the low back. Check in if it feels better for you to have your chin out or to have your forehead on the mat. One might feel better for you. Allow the belly to completely release. If it ever becomes too much for the inner arms, for the shoulders, you can always come to your forearms. Or you can cross your arms one on top of the other. because the stretch in the inside of the shoulders can be a little bit intense, we won't hold this one for as long as the others. Just continue to breathe. Big inhales, big exhales. Allow your chest to melt down closer to the mat. Heart melting pose. Slowly take one more deep breath. Walk yourself back up to a tabletop. And now from here we can start to take some more dynamic movement, loosening up the hips again after holding them. So you can take some very slow cat-cows. Inhales to lift, exhales to push into the floor and round. You might want to move side to side or shift a bit forward and back. Just allowing movement, but mindful movement. Move with your slow breath. You might start to find some bigger or faster movements. Really stay connected to your mat, hands down, grounded down and heavy. When you're loosened up, evened out, we're going to walk all the way forward so that you're lying down on the mat. Sphinx pose. Elbow underneath your shoulder. And that's really the only bit of alignment that matters here, is to have the elbow underneath your shoulder. The hands can be anywhere at an angle that works. Your feet can come out, they can flop out. And you can really heavy the chest and allow the shoulders to come up towards the ear. So normally in yoga, the cue is always to draw the shoulders down and back, but here we can really just let them collapse. We're trying not to arch in or compress or hold in, but rather just heavy down. And here's a pose where a prop can be helpful. You might want to place a block or a pillow underneath your head. You can also place it underneath your chest. If the chest is lifted too high, it might help you be able to have it a bit lower. You can let your head drop, or you might look up. Whatever feels better to you. And wherever you are, heavy, heavy, heavy. Notice any tension starting to build in the shoulders. And see if you can let go of that tension. Notice the sensation pooling in the low back. And see if you can let go of that sensation. the last few moments, you can stay here. If you feel like you'd like a little bit more sensation, you can turn your fingertips out towards the corner of your mat and lift yourself up. So you will need to add a little bit of muscle engagement, just slightly, and then still allow the chest to heavy down towards the floor. This just creates a little bit more compression in the low spine, so make sure it feels okay. If not, you'll come right back down. Relax the feet, relax your fingers, and allow just the bones to hold you up. Everything else is heavy to the mat. You might even add some very slow movements of the head, side to side, just to help release some tension in the neck as you hold yourself here. Let the legs completely go. One more deep breath wherever you are. And slowly lower down to the mat. Come all the way down, stacking one arm on top of the other. Crocodile pose, just rest the forehead. You might want to shimmy your hips into the mat and really allow the compression of your low back to release. From here, we're going to do a pose for the inner thigh, the inner hip, half frog. Just going to draw up your right knee out to the side so it looks like a frog leg. Your knee is about in line with your ankle. Flex your toes towards your knee and keep it there. If you're not feeling this at all, you can hike your knee up a little bit closer towards your armpit. But just know that it's a fairly subtle stretch in the beginning. And then as you hold it for longer, you'll start to feel it a little bit more. Notice whatever sensation comes up for you. You might also feel this a bit in the low back, across the hip, across the leg. You might turn your head over onto one side. Just make sure you flip it when we do the other side. And you can always use a prop to prop up your knee for a little bit more, or to hold in the hip. Whatever makes this slightly more comfortable for you. And we're also working to sit with that discomfort. So you're aiming to find the edge of your discomfort, the edge of your flexibility, the edge of your stretch. Not past pain, but holding at that edge and then seeing if you can create a little more space just by holding and then releasing. Maybe finding a little more room to stay and then release. very slowly slide your leg back into place. Take a moment to notice how each leg feels. So maybe you didn't notice it while you were in it, but now you can see the difference on each side. And when you're ready, draw the opposite knee out and up. Again, the heel is about in line with your knee, doesn't have to be perfect. Bring your toes more towards the top of your knee. Hike your knee up as much as you need to feel the sensation in the inner hip, inner groin, inner thigh. And relax everything else heavy to the mat. Know that you might not feel sensation yet, but you'll feel it as you hold. Also, as you hold longer, you might lose the sensation and you might need to go a little bit further. Hiking the knee up a little bit closer. Or maybe allowing the leg and the hip to come down more into the mat. Notice that by releasing certain spaces in the body and the muscles, you can deepen your stretch. You can increase your sensation. Know that one side is different than the other. So this side might look and feel a little bit different, and that's okay. Listen to your body, your breath. And if the mind starts to wander here as you hold, you can acknowledge those thoughts. And then gently guide your mind back to breath and back to sensation. Take one more deep breath. And slowly slide the leg back. You might pause in the center, shimmy the hips side to side. Briefly notice how each hip, each leg feels different here. And very gently press yourself up. You can sit on your heels, sweep the legs out in front of you. And we're going to lie all the way down on the back. So see if you can do that with as little muscle engagement as possible. Maybe you want to hug the knees in and roll back. Hug the knees in as you get down there. Relax the shoulders down to the length of your spine. You might want to circle the hips, massaging the low back. We're going to take a twist on each side. You can keep the knees just stacked. If you want a little more for the outer hip, you can take eagle legs, crossing the right leg over the left. And it can be really loose. You don't have to get the double wrap with the ankle. Just nice and loose. Place your foot down to the floor. Shift your hips over to the right. And then let your knees fall over towards the left. You may find you need to loosen up your grip a bit of your legs. You may also want to place a block or a pillow underneath your knees. Or you can place a prop or a pillow underneath your right shoulder. So if your right shoulder is popping up, hanging out in space, you may want to place something underneath it. And if you want more landing or grounding for your knees, you might place something underneath your knees. Either way, your arms can go wherever feels best. So you might want to open them out all the way, side to side. You may want to place your left hand on top of your right knee, just to add a little more weight. You may want to look over towards the right, completing your twist. Where can you let go and release here? And as you relax the muscles in the legs, your legs might start to unravel, and let them. Let your body settle here down to the mat. Feel the subtle, small twist traveling up the spine. You can send your breath up and down. Travel through, follow your breath as you heavy here to the floor. deep breath. Slowly bring your head back to center, then the knees. Very carefully unravel the legs. If you've crossed them, maybe you windshield wiper the knees side to side. And then bring left over right. Push the right foot into the floor, shift your hips over and let your knees fall towards the right. Again, propping the bottom shoulder, the left shoulder, if it lifts up off of the mat. And propping your knees, if you'd like a little more grounding, on the floor. Arms can be wide, maybe they're by your side. You might place your right hand on top of the left hip for some more pressure, more weight. And you can turn your head over the left shoulder. Heavy completely into the mat. Notice that with each exhale, the chest broadens. You create more room across the outer hip. And you can deepen a little bit more into your twist, the rotation, the wringing out of your spine. Take one more deep breath. And then slowly make your way back to center. Unravel the legs. Maybe windshield wiper them side to side. One more pose before Savasana, supported bridge pose. Whatever your prop is, if you have a block or a pillow, and it's okay if it's not very high, Even if the hips are lifted just a bit, you'll still get the benefit. You're pushing your feet into the floor. Lift the hips just enough that you can slip your prop underneath you. Right at the sacrum if you can. If it's a big pillow, it might just be resting the hips on the pillow slightly. You can let the knees fall in towards one another if that feels good. And really allow this to open up the whole front side of your body. Yes, it's a big hip opener, but also allow this to broaden your chest, to give your belly room to expand and collapse to its full motion. Your arms can be resting on the belly by your side. Maybe you even want to reach them overhead for a little more length across the front side of your body. Up to you. Take a few moments here for what you need. If you would like a little bit more sensation, you can lengthen your legs all the way long. So with the hips lifted, even slightly, maybe a little bit higher, you can feel a little bit more length from the fingertips to the toes. And if you want, you can reach the arms overhead. If that doesn't feel good to you, then just re-bend the knees. Soles of the feet to the floor. And take a few more breaths wherever you are. And now for the last several minutes of class, you can stay here if this feels good to you. Or you can remove your prop, your bolster, your pillow, and lie in a full Savasana. Letting go completely heavy into the floor. Allow the whole front side of the body to open and the whole back side of your body too heavy, deeper into the floor. Notice the quality of your breath, how the body feels. Feel the rib cage expand, belly expand, and collapse with your breath. And take this last moment to just be. Feel free to stay in a Savasana or your final resting pose if you'd like. But it is the top of the hour, so if you would like to seal your practice a little more active, you can slowly start to make movements in the head, the wrists, the ankles. Rock your head side to side. You might want to take a full body stretch or hug the body in, roll over onto one side. Eventually, you can make your way to a nice, comfortable seat, tall spine, relaxed shoulders, eyes open or closed. Settle down. Just for a final moment of peace, of breath, so that you may bring your practice with you when you leave the mat. Thank yourself so much for your practice today, and I thank you so much for sharing it.